Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 135 of Small Business War Stories. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Michael and Kathy Dumont, who are the proprietors of a place called the Commodore Hotel. And the Commodore is a hotel in Linden, Tennessee, which is about an hour and change out of Nashville, kind of on the way to Memphis. It's on the old Memphis highway before they build a newer, bigger way to get from point A to point B there. And it's a really fascinating story because they moved to the south to Linden, Tennessee from the north, from the northeast, and they loved it so much that they really doubled down and invested in that community, and they are investing a lot of themselves and their own money into making Linden a destination. Now, Linden has some amazing attractions and so forth, and they'll tell the story. But I learned a lot, and I was really inspired by their dedication. Make sure you go check out our website at smallbusinesswarstories.com. And smallbusinesswarstories.com, you can see all of our past episodes. Now, if I can ask you, please tell one person about this episode if you enjoy it. Just tell one person whom you think would appreciate this particular story. Somebody who likes hotels and somebody who likes the South. It really helps us if you help us spread the word. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Michael and Kathy Dumont of the Commodore Hotel in Linden, Tennessee. And we are live here this morning in beautiful Linden, Tennessee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We are, is this about halfway between Nashville and Memphis, roughly?
About halfway.
Okay. Maybe a little bit closer to Nashville?
Nashville, yep.
Okay.
A little closer to Nashville.
Okay. Awesome.
On the original music highway, we like to say.
Tell me more about that. What's the original music highway?
Well, this is Route 100, and Elvis used to come through town.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, Johnny Cash. All those musicians, before the interstate was built, and even after, they would just drive through here. It's like a straight shot to Nashville from here.
Right, because they built Highway 40, right? Which is how far? It's about,
20 miles.
20 miles north. Up north. And that meant that all of a sudden traffic did not go through here as much?
Not as much, right.
When was that?
That was...
probably in the 60s.
In the 60s, okay. Got it. Cool. So how long have you been the proprietors of this hotel? Because this hotel is a very interesting history. It was built originally in 1939, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah,
so 1939, and then it got to a point, it had a history, which I want to hear from you, but then it was vacant, and then you took it over. So I want to hear a little bit more. What is the history of the place that we're sitting in, and what, in God's name, possessed you to go ahead and say, we're going to take over a vacant hotel? And, most people are scared of redoing their bathroom.
Right.
You're redoing a whole historic structure.
Oh, I know. Well, I'll let Michael talk about the construction part, but the hotel was built in 1939. Again, that was the heyday of this area in the early 40s and stuff. A lot of traffic, and a lot of traveling business people and stuff. There were 5 hotels in this town, actually.
Is that right?
The town's about 1,000 people, and has been about that for that long. But basically, the main story, we didn't grow up here or anything. We moved down here about 13, 14 years ago. We bought property here as a second home, and it was just a getaway. We lived in Rhode Island and would just travel down here on the weekends. And then one time after spending 2 weeks here over Christmas, I thought, I don't want to go back to Rhode Island because it was
too
beautiful.
Cold.
We just loved it. Yeah. We just loved the pace of life. It was slower. You could have fresh air, fresh water, and people were so friendly and nice. And I just loved that pace. So then we started spending more time down here. I don't know if that really answers your question.
No. So
Sort of
you
went
start
off
spending
track.
more time down here. How long was it between the time you moved here permanently and the time that you decided to buy this?
Well, I think we were still living here part-time. And,
okay.
And so we bought it prior to that. We've been living here full-time since about 2010.
Okay.
And, but my background, I'm a real estate developer.
Okay.
And did a lot of preservation work in Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Boston.
Now we're finding out what's going on.
Yeah, so unfortunately, as a developer, whether you're on vacation or we had a second home in Florida as well, and we ended up buying buildings down there as well. So it's sort of like, I guess it sort of ruins your vacation paradise.
You can't escape
like
it.
a
Yeah.
disease.
Can't help yourself. So we saw this really intriguing building in town. It had been not occupied as a hotel in about 25 years.
Wow.
And like, well, we can buy that. We can get that thing up and running again.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's
And how long did it take from the time you said that to the time that the first guest checked in?
It was probably 6 or 8 months.
Oh, that's fast.
Well, and that's one of the pleasures of doing business here is that, and I listened to one of your podcasts and I heard someone talking about the permitting process took them like 2 years to get a liquor license, I think.
Right.
And so things are a little bit different in rural Tennessee. I mean, we closed on it one day, we started working the following day. And at the time I was doing concurrently I was doing a project in Rhode Island that was about the same size.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the permitting process for almost 3 years. This when we started, I went to the town hall and it was like a $2 building permit, and I didn't have a check or two. I had like a $100 bill, and the guy said, "I'll just pay it for you." So that was welcome to small town development.
Wow,
much different.
Wow. So, what are some of the considerations that you had to have in mind as you rehabilitate a building that is that old? Are there codes in terms of what you can and cannot change, or is it pretty much like up to your discretion? How does that work?
Well, here it was pretty much up to our discretion. We had to bring in some consultants like for fire prevention things, central alarms and things like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was just, the when you start looking at the original integrity of the building, it kind of tells you what it needs to be. It stripped down all the things that have been added through the years. And
so you did strip down the things that were added.
Yeah, and one of our biggest considerations during construction was the original hotel was 14 rooms with only 5 bathrooms. And
14 rooms and 5 bathrooms.
Right. So we had to obviously, the modern traveler wants their own bathroom. So we had to, steal space where we could steal space and get creative to get bathrooms.
But that's not just walls. That's like plumbing. I mean, that gets interesting.
Right.
Very much so.
Okay.
And again, I had a lot of.
How did that take you 8 months?
We big crews working 7 days a week, and we just kept working.
All right. You just meant it.
And again, I was managing it from Rhode Island and coming down here for a couple of weeks at a time, and we'd be running out. Kathy and I, we bought a big truck, and we'd be going out at night getting material to keep the crews going. So it was an interesting process.
Okay. And when did you officially open your doors?
2007.
Yeah.
2007. So it's been 12 years.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about these last 12 years. What is it like? You guys have won some awards. Who's your typical traveler? I mean, I know that here in Perry County, there's a lot of activities around the rivers, and that's a big driver of everything that happens here.
Right.
But tell me a little bit more about who are the people that come stay here. Why do they want to come experience Linden?
People who are looking for a getaway from the cities, basically. So people from Nashville or Memphis, because it's a quick drive, but it's still a getaway. But mainly people within a 3 to 5 hour radius driving time will come for anniversaries, just really as a getaway because it's such a small town.
Yeah.
We do live music on Friday nights. We try to make every guest experience special, especially if we know there's a special occasion.
Yeah.
And everything. So, but we really had to drive the traffic here. I mean, people were coming here for the rivers, but Linden was like a speed bump. I mean, for people going to the rivers, because really nothing was happening downtown when we bought it. The half the stores or more were shuttered, and the they had power lines everywhere. I mean, nothing was really happening downtown.
Okay.
So that all changed when we bought this and started rehabbing it. All of a sudden, people got more interested in coming downtown, and so many people, locals from the community, would come in and take a tour because they loved to see that the hotel had life again and that someone was going to save it and everything, because it was really starting to deteriorate. And so it was really interesting that the whole community was like supporting us, basically.
Wow.
You know.
So so let's talk a little bit about the live music side of it. So you have obviously, so down here you have the speakeasy area, and then there's a cafe area, and the music is in the cafe.
Yeah.
Do you have a notion for anybody who played here in the past? Did folks? I mean, I know right behind you is a Johnny Cash show poster. Do you know if those folks ever played here? Or not?
Right. I don't think so.
Okay.
I've heard from some older folks that there was a jukebox in the corner, and they played Blueberry Hill was one of the songs. This woman was talking about how they used to play that over and over and dance to it and everything. Okay. Yeah. But I don't know that they had live music here.
And what kind of acts do you try to bring through? What do you try to do?
Really anything. But it's usually one or two people with a guitar and maybe a keyboard or something. But it's anything. We're so close to Nashville, and so there's so many musicians here. That's what really hit us when we came to Nashville. We would stop in Nashville before coming here to Linden when we would fly in from Rhode Island to visit, and so many places, so many, you could just walk in every single club or bar, and they had live music, and it was really good music. I mean, it wasn't just mediocre or anything. So we knew that wouldn't be hard, I guess, to bring musicians here. We didn't know if they would want to travel here, but we do have some people from Nashville who come here.
Is that right?
And play, and they love it because it's small, it's intimate.
Yeah.
There's a real connection between them and the guests.
Yeah.
And so
that happens in Austin a lot too, because Austin has a big live music scene.
Right.
But there's so much talent and so many musicians that the communities that are, call it 1 to 2 hours away from Austin, there's a lot of them on the hill country.
Right.
There's a lot of musicians who love to go out there and play because the pay is better. One.
Oh, really? Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and there's less competition, and the audiences tend to love the fact that in Austin and in Nashville, I'm sure to some extent, people sort of take it for granted that there's all this talent around after a while.
Yes, that's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said something really interesting, which is that you had to drive people here initially. So what was that like? I mean, so for somebody who is considering doing anything like this, or even starting any business, obviously you have to generate that demand. What was the process from the time that you knew that you were ready to receive guests to actually publicize this and help people understand that you are here and that they should come by?
So we opened this up in 2007, and everything that we did in Rhode Island was just successful. So we figured, we can just rehab this building and hang our shingle, and people will come. There's no other hotels. There's no competition.
Yep.
Should be walk in the park. And not the case.
Right.
Because obviously,
if you build it, they will not come.
That's what we're like. So we booked our first guest, who ironically they just stayed here again last week. And he was an airline pilot from Tampa, and who became a great friend. And so we booked them, and something interesting happened on the way to opening the business, and that was we had hired a general manager who had hotel experience. And about 2 weeks before our official opening, he said, I took another job in South Carolina, so I won't be there to run your hotel.
No, it was like right as we were opening. Maybe it was like that day or something. I remember trying to call him.
Maybe it felt that way.
Well, I know. Maybe that's true.
But so we spent the first night here with our first guest, and then we had no business behind that. And we're like, well, geez, how do we get people to start coming here?
Yeah.
And we took a good look at the town, and we're like, we took the rose-colored glasses off, I guess, and we said, well, it doesn't really have a lot of curbside appeal to town right now. And so there were a lot of challenges in getting up and running, and that was like, so certainly there was no built-in tourism.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't that kind of a community.
Okay.
And it wasn't a big initiative. And
there were all these people coming through, and they were going to the river, but they weren't really capturing the people and therefore getting the dollars.
How far are the rivers? I actually haven't been to the rivers.
So the Buffalo it's a 12-minute walk.
Oh.
Yeah,
just right behind the hotel here, and then the Tennessee River is about 12 miles.
Okay. So tell me more into that challenge, right? Because today, as you walk down the street here, maybe there's one vacant store, but other than that, like, there's a lot of activity. There are coffee shops, there are art galleries, there are. I went to a music store yesterday, not too far from here. What was that process? How did you work with other people and try to mobilize the community to kind of make it it takes a village kind of thing? Like, what was that like?
So I think it was a great public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm.
When we realized that there wasn't really a lot of goodwill built-in business here.
Yep.
We met with we had a great local mayor, and we met with him, and we said, well, we really. We're committed to the community. We obviously we've just spent quite a bit of money on restoring this hotel, and the town has a very distressed look to it. It's we have 14 vacant storefronts. The infrastructure, like the sidewalks, had not been worked on in 60 or 70 years. So like narrow, cracked sidewalks and utility poles all up and down the roads with wires hanging over the street. I mean, it was not really that appealing.
Yeah.
So he goes, let's see what we can do. And he started dragging me to meetings in Nashville, and we'd go meet with state leaders. And during this time, a large local factory, the major employer, moved out of town, and it took 1,000 jobs away
from here,
from this little town.
Ooh. Right.
And so unemployment became like 29%. I think it was like the second highest in the country behind some small town in Alaska. So,
right.
So
what was the factory that moved away?
It was an automotive manufacturer.
So like components, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was devastating to the local community, and that was like us opening up our business here. And
at the same time.
Yeah.
So that wasn't
Good
like
timing.
Yeah, that wasn't great timing.
Sure.
And so, so between the local leaders, who obviously they knew they had a major problem here with high unemployment, and the state was like, how do we get some business? How do we stimulate that local economy? So a lot of resources came in. They got some highway department enhancement grants, and they redid sidewalks and streetscape, new trees and buried utility lines and new light poles. So we have a beautiful little downtown now. And
you do.
So I think when that was a big catalyst between what we had done, and then other businesses started opening.
Who are the other business owners? So like this dovetails perfectly into one of the big things that I want to talk to you about is how do you interact with other members of the community? Who are these other people? Did you talk to them? Did you know them, or did you get to know them after they opened their stores? How was that?
I think we've always just worked with the local business community. Obviously we bring people to town. We have a hotel, so people stay here, and so they want to have our customers go and become their customers. So we've always had a great relationship with local businesses, and it's something that we've cultivated through the years. We've formed merchant groups, and we've tried to do things collectively, like cooperative advertising. We've taken some destination marketing boot camp classes together. So just things that kind of help drive the local business.
Interesting. So there are destination, what do you call it? Destination market boot camps, meaning that they're like places that teach you how to cater to people who want to come here and spend time here.
Right, and I think the local different Chamber of Commerce, state agencies have actually paid consultants to come here and work with the business community
Wow.
on destination marketing. So
Yeah.
again, because we were kind of in a really tough situation,
Yeah.
a lot of resources came.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, in Tennessee, and Texas is kind of the same way too. Pretty business friendly state, and I know that Nashville's growing a lot. Memphis is struggling a little bit more. When I go through there, it's a little rougher. But
Right.
that's a separate podcast. But I know that it seems like the state is giving you a lot of help in doing this.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
as you, this is probably a work in progress, right? In terms of continuing to develop this as a destination, what are some of the things that you are working on today that you are betting on in terms of paying off in the future with continuing to make this even more of a destination 5 years from now?
Well, I think the paint is still wet. We're just kind of finishing some things, opening new businesses. We've got about 25 working artists in town now, so I think that becomes a good destination draw.
Yeah.
We're a great destination draw.
The artists are working on developing classes and even one-on-one type of workshops and stuff. So if we had a guest come in who wanted to learn how to do this, the newest kind of painting, pour painting, that's what it's called, that they could schedule a one-on-one workshop with that artist, for the next day.
This artist angle is really interesting. You were kind of holding that in your back pocket. So hold on, you have how many artists you said? 20.
About 25 working
25.
in town.
That's incredible. So they weren't always here. I'm going to presume 12 years ago. What brought them here? I mean, I presume the cost of living is relatively low, and you were able to have space and the ability to pursue that, right? So
right, and I think a lot of people have come here for the same reasons we did. That it was the cost of living was low, the cost of land and stuff was low.
Yeah.
So they either lived up north or in Florida, and relocated here because of all those things, and it's just beautiful here. That the nature is amazing. It's pristine. Like, we can drink out of water, surface water on our land, and it's still pure. It's like that pristine, which is just crazy to us coming from New England, where everything is so polluted and overcrowded.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you may have encountered, because I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that not every single person, maybe many people liked it, but not every single, because sometimes people just don't like change. Right. So did you encounter any opposition or challenges, or people, not enthused about what you're doing?
Right. Yep. Of course. Yeah. Especially being a small town.
Yeah.
But nothing. We would hear things from other people. No one ever, really said anything directly to us, and the only things we ever heard were positive things. Once in a while, we'd hear that someone was saying something negative, but was it about
anywhere. The fact that you were from the north and you were coming here to
I'm sure that was part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, now you're a part of this community. And
right. And we never, when we redid this, it was to save the building, really. That was our addiction that we have of saving these buildings, And so basically, we weren't coming in trying to say, we want to change this and make it better.
Yeah.
I know that's a plight of a lot of small communities and everything, where all these people from the outside come in and say, oh, we're going to change it and make it better. We wanted it to stay the same as far as the feel of it and all that.
Yeah.
I think originally our intent was, it was purely business. It was, we're going to renovate this building, and it's going to be just a business, a real estate holding. And somehow it became a passion, that we understood the plight of the town, and we got involved in that. And that's been one of the passions that have driven us. We want to see the place better. We want to support the local community. If the businesses have bad sales days, we feel like we should be doing more to bring more people here. So we've always had that attitude. And I think
so you take it personally.
Yeah, and very personally, and more personally than anything we've ever done in our life. I mean, we probably have taken we did very well doing development in Rhode Island, and I can't say the same what we're doing here.
Yeah.
This has been a whole different cause for us.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're committed to it, and you're here. You live not too far from here, right?
Yeah, we're about 5 miles out of town.
Yeah, 5 miles out of town. And so tell me more about some of the, what's next? What's your vision? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's going on here?
Well, I think we're in the midst of it. So what we've done here in town is we've added more buildings and more rooms here in town. So we've helped with that, again, that revitalization. We've taken several other buildings that had been, one of them next door. Where did you stay? Did you stay in this building or the?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so we have another building just up the street over there, and that had been shuttered since the 50s. The second floor of that, and built as a rooming house originally. So put that back in service, and we have the oldest commercial building in town. It was built as a bank, and that was the second floor. That had been closed up since the 60s. So we put that building back in service as hotel rooms. And we have recently opened up a bed and breakfast in Clifton, Tennessee, which is the next town over.
Okay.
It's on the Tennessee River. And so that preservation was an old Victorian home that we restored into a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
So I think to say, what is our vision? Our vision is like put our feet on the ground and get all this stuff working now. 'Cause we've been building and building and building for the last several years.
Right, and part of it is encouraging and inspiring artists to move here. Is inspiring people to come visit here. Are there any wineries and breweries around here? Because at least in Texas, a lot of the towns like this one. Right. That attract people from some of the larger cities have like those kinds of things going on around them.
Right. We don't have any right here, right nearby. There are 3 or 4 wineries, like about a half-hour drive in the next county.
And there are distilleries in Tennessee too, right? So,
yeah.
But Dickel's kind of far. Dickel's a little bit further.
Right, but there are
east.
some in Franklin, just outside of Nashville. There are some.
Right.
And it's okay. They've passed an ordinance that we can do that. People can open a distillery here.
Oh yeah.
In this county and everything.
Is that what's next? He's shaking his head.
It's definitely in there. We've talked to one of our friends about being a partner of something like that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be our baby though.
Oh yeah. But his body language is like, no, we're not touching that with a 1,000-foot pole.
Well, we do have one new venture that we're starting, and obviously the rivers are a great resource here, a great tourism resource. Yeah. So we are in the process of opening up. We just bought a lot in town on the river, and we're opening up a kayak business. So we're going to start renting kayaks out, and many people come to. Everyone knows of the Buffalo River is this like pristine river. They call it a wild river. It's one of only a few in the country.
What does that mean?
It's just a very undeveloped river. It flows where it wants to flow. It changes all the time.
It's not dammed or anything like
that.
No,
not at all.
Never had any industry on it.
Okay.
So again, really pristine,
crystal clear water, and just I want
to go for a swim now.
Well, if you had a little time, we'd probably take it. It's an experience that is very memorable. It's just you get out there, you feel like you're on a Lewis and Clark adventure.
Oh wow!
And you're just discovering America. It's what it feels like to us.
And I always think, how many places in the world really now can you still go where all you see is nature and no buildings? You can't hear cars. You can't hear lawnmowers or leaf blowers, where it's just pristine nature, and that's one of the things that the Buffalo River offers in this area in general. What drew us here?
Mm-hmm. You'll see turtles jumping off of trees, limbs hanging out over the water, and flowers growing along. It's just beautiful. It changes every time you go out on it.
Is that right?
Or you notice more things. It's mesmerizing.
That's amazing. Now, what are some of the crazier things you've seen here? I mean, I'm sure that you have some interesting stories of things that have happened here in the hotel.
Yeah, I know there are lots. We had a guest one time who had a few drinks, and he ended up going into someone else's room. They weren't in there. The people weren't in there, and he ended up
Just going to sleep.
going to sleep.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And so then these people came back and they were like, "Oh my gosh, there's someone sleeping in our room." So that was a little bit crazy
I'm
and
sure.
funny. But one of the wild things that we see actually every year is there's this ultra marathon that comes through here every July. They were just here a couple weeks ago, and it's 315 miles. 315 miles that these people walk and run. Yes, right, in July.
In July, I was going to say, that's a wrong time of year to do that in Tennessee.
But
It's always the hottest weekend of the year when they do it.
right, the guy who came up with it that's his like MO, that he comes up with the craziest, most challenging things
Yeah.
that you can think of.
Actually, I think the hardest race in the country, if not the world, is in Tennessee. I don't know where it is. It's called the Berkeley Marathon.
Yeah, so the same guy that runs that.
Is that right?
Yep.
What's his last name? Lake.
Lazarus
He-
Lake is his nickname.
Okay.
So he also sponsors that one. And last summer, he's probably 70 years old. He
Yeah.
walked from Rhode Island to Oregon last summer.
Oh,
You're right. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
What's that, like
so yeah, the
3,500
Berkeley
miles
Marathon.
or
The Berkeley Marathon is yet another podcast, but that is
Right.
insane. I know some
Right.
people who have attempted that, and that's beyond insane.
Right,
They
right.
say this is just as challenging because you're walking on some narrow roads, and again, you have to do at least 31 miles a day just to stay on par. So so if you fall behind, you get disqualified, and we're about mile 125. And we're like this beacon for people that are trying to get here. Like, get to the Commodore, because
Okay.
they know they're going to get fed, and they know they're going to have a good, comfortable place to sleep. And
Yeah.
they're checking in and out of here all night, all day and all night. Some people
Ooh.
might stay 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
So they're going from Missouri to Georgia.
Jesus.
Chattanooga, right.
And people finish
So
it.
basically, it's along the entire state of Tennessee.
Right. And
Yeah.
people finish it. The winner this year finished it like in 3 days, 6 hours, something insane.
I know. Can you imagine?
Averaging 80, 90 miles a day running.
So that's not a lot of sleep.
No.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
No.
There,
Do you guys make commemorative T-shirts with the Commodore Hotel for the race?
We need to.
Yeah.
They travel very lightly.
Yeah.
And they normally just wear the same clothes. And they're like, we're disgusting. We're sorry.
Yeah.
I know. I was trying to carry one of their backpacks, because they can hardly walk when they get
I
here.
bet.
Some of them, and they're
And
just.
and you still got a long way to Georgia.
I know.
That's
yeah.
a good name
yeah.
for a song, by the way.
And right, exactly. And they're
thinking that the whole time.
Yeah, long way to Georgia.
And so I tried to pick up their backpack, and they're like, "Oh no, you don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
No, like it'll take
Yeah.
you days to wash the stink off your
Oh,
hands or
Jesus.
something." I know. But that's a wild thing that we see. That's just unbelievable. But we
Yeah.
go above. We try to go above and beyond to take care of those people and do whatever we can.
Yeah. Can you think of a time when things went really wrong? Because that's funny what you just told me. But like, can you think of a time when you're like, oh shit, and like things went wrong, and what did you do about it?
Well, I was sort of thinking about this with the title of your podcast series,
Yeah.
and I was trying to think, like, what was our darkest hour?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, because, in a historic building, there are always things that you're working on and issues, where you have a big leak or something.
Sure.
But anyway, our darkest hour was probably just a couple years ago, not even 2 years ago, maybe, after we did that bed and breakfast in Clifton that Michael was talking about.
Yeah.
We were about 2 years into construction and almost finished with it. And it was such a drain on us financially and a drain on our marriage and time-wise and everything, just because he was so focused on getting the work done there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really the lead carpenter and everything, because it's so tough to find people out here in a rural area. So he was YouTubing everything to restore this place.
Yeah.
Himself with some
That's how I learned how to
helpers.
make guitars, by the way, so I can relate.
It's an awesome resource.
Yeah, you can learn.
Right. But that was like a really, really stressful time period for us, because we saw our level of business declining, and we were really, I'm always an optimist. I've always been, whenever Michael would get discouraged and say, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? I'd say, oh, but it's good. We're doing this. We're helping the community.
Yeah.
The business is getting better. We're getting better all the time, and always seeing the future as being bright. And then after a couple years doing this project and everything, I was like, questioning myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually got to that real low point of thinking.
I think that happens to every business owner. So.
Yeah. And that's why, I wanted to share that we were like in a hole, just thinking, are we really doing the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the biggest challenge for me during that is I don't usually do the work.
Right.
And so that when I was there like 3.5 years,
Yeah.
And, we did this one fast. And that was just because it was so much Victorian detail that needed to be reworked. And
that's not average carpentry.
No, and I would say my skills before that were not very significant. And I have good skills now. A lot of skills I don't want to have, and I will never do that again.
Yeah.
But I can say that.
So how did you get out of that? What are the techniques and the things that you saw were effective for you? Because a lot of our audience are small business owners or people who are thinking about starting a small business. And this is something that is not whether, it's when you're going to encounter these low moments. What are some of the things that work for you?
Exactly. And it's all about attitude and keeping your attitude up. That's what we learned. I went to a Chamber of Commerce thing, and a local business person was giving a speech, and they said, get better, not bitter. And a few other, gems. But her thing was, it's all about your attitude. And then I heard about, The Secret, Law of Attraction, and everything. And again, going back to YouTube, I started watching like motivational or listening to motivational speeches and everything. That's one thing I would say. Listen to podcasts like this where you get inspired by other people's stories and everything. Listen to motivational things on YouTube to get you out of those holes. Yeah. Because like you said, they are going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's really what got us out of it, because we were in a bad place mentally, you know, and I had never experienced that before, but it was, just some things.
And that's something we talk about on the podcast, and it's a difficult conversation to have. But I think it's an important one, which is the mental health side of being out there on your own, like, starting a business, right?
Right.
I ran a business for 10 years, and I definitely experienced that many, many times. And a lot of our guests, actually, we had a great conversation that went really deep into this with Silas Pollitt from Stone's Throw Pizza. He's a former jiu-jitsu teammate of mine. Well, still teammate, but now he lives up in Vermont. And we went deep into this, and beyond the scope of this particular episode, but it's definitely worth checking out. And that's something that we talk about a lot. Do you have, for me, something that really helped is working out and meditation always. And right. I notice when I don't meditate, it's kind of like, or I'm playing music. Do you have maybe little techniques like that work for you, things that you do?
Just, I would say, listening to the different motivational things.
To different things.
But I subscribe to some, and just hearing that, putting that on while I'm getting ready in the morning or something to motivate me. Those are the main things that I would say. We do the same thing. I've noticed with working out, with meditating. I walk in the woods and everything, and that's sort of my meditation time. So, but that would be the cue, because some of these tapes, they inspire you. They're like, you know what, you got to do the work. You got to stay committed and stop being a wuss or a baby, and get it done, and get back up, because your determination is going to make it happen.
One of the things that helped me is thinking about micro tasks instead of the enormity of the, instead of restoring a whole hotel, you're going to fix one door. Or you're gonna,
Right. That reminds me of this Valentine's Day massacre that we had here. We call it because it was our first Valentine's Day in the restaurant. Again, we had no restaurant experience, and we're in a restaurant. And it was packed, and nothing was happening. The food was not coming out. one guy in the kitchen like almost cut his finger off or something. So he was out and we were like, what are we going to do? And I had all these orders up there, and again, I had no kitchen experience. And I was like, you just got to focus on one order at a time.
Yeah.
And that's how you get out of it, and just focus on one at a time. And then it got better and better and quicker and quicker, all that.
Yeah. Actually, that is when I was a little kid, my mom told me a story about a little boy that's in a forest, and that he's lost in a dark forest, and a fairy godmother shows up and gives him a matchbook, and then he's able to light one match and then walk 10 steps and so forth, and that way he's able to get out of the forest. And then on the way out, he gets mad at her. He's like, "What? You could have given me anything. You could have given me a torch and illuminated the whole forest." And she's like, "Well, if you had seen how big the forest was, you would have never started walking."
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's when I went to college, my mom gave me a compass so I wouldn't lose my north and a matchbook.
Okay.
And actually, I currently have in the back of my arm here a tattoo of a hand holding a match.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah,
that's
so
great.
that's something that, and I, as much as it's top of mind for me, I have to remind myself of that, because a lot of times, a lot of these things seem so daunting, especially when, it's everybody struggles with that, right? Like the question is not whether you struggle, it's how you deal with it.
Right.
That's
and
awesome.
You just got to keep going, keep believing.
Absolutely.
Keep the faith.
Absolutely. If people are interested in finding out more, where can people find you? So let's say that people want to come here and stay at your hotel. You also have an Instagram account, right, that you're active on. So where can people find you?
Well, our website is the main thing, CommodoreHotelLinden.com, and links to everything, and also every social media outlet. Well, not really Snapchat, but...
And do you guys have a calendar there of what's going on with the arts events and all that?
Yep.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Kathy, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. Congratulations on everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Look forward to coming back here, maybe with a guitar sometime. And,
definitely.
We'll have a good
when
time.
you have more time.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.